Is it from the way of the Salaf that when a student opposes the manhaj of the Salaf or the truth and the haqq, and he's warned against by the mashayikh or those students who are well known to the mashayikh and the ulama, that a layman goes back and checks the errors with the one who has erred or the one that was refuted? Is this from the manhaj of the Salaf?
It is not from the manhaj of the Salaf that when either the alim or the talib ilm who has the ability to warn and to make jarh, as our scholars have mentioned, those who are arifun bi asbab al-jarh wa ta'dil, those who are acquainted with the reasons for making jarh, if that individual makes jarh and speaks against an individual, it was not the way of the Salaf that after hearing their ai hearing their teachers speaking against an individual, that they would go back to that individual and check and ascertain, make sure that what is being said was true, or make sure that what was being said, it was not a misunderstanding or what have you. That was not their way. Since they understood that the ai when they spoke based upon taqwa and wara' and sidq, and the reason that they were who they were from the people of knowledge was because these were the principles that they were working with, and their speech revolved around taqwa. And they didn't speak because of aghrad. They didn't speak against individuals due to any intent or trying to deceive the people in general. They spoke for the good of the deen and for the good of the Muslimin. And their speech was based in taqwa. And that continues to be the case in our time, when our ulama and when our students of knowledge speak, and when they address an affair and they make jarh of an individual, it is not something that is based upon whim or desires. Rather, it is based upon qawa'id and principles. And it is based upon taqwa. It is based upon sidq, truthfulness and uprightness. And it is based upon the affair of nasiha to the Muslimin. When Amr ibn Ubaid, who was an individual who had numerous students from the Mu'tazila, from the A'imma and the leaders of the Mu'tazila, when he was warned against, the following day, after having numerous individuals in his circle, the following day his circle was empty. And so an individual passed by his gathering and said, where are the tullab, where are the students? And so he responded by saying, حضر مني ابن عون فتركوني. He said that Ibn Awn, the great Imam from the ai of Hadith, Ibn Awn warned against me, and so now they have left me. And Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, he said himself that as it relates to our warning against these individuals, we are better to them and more merciful to them than their mothers and their fathers. Our warning prevents the people from following them, and so their awzar and their sins are lessened yawm al-qiyamah. They don't have as many people taking their burden and following them, and thus their sins are lessened on the Day of Judgment. And so it is not out of the absence of mercy. Rather, it is mercy that they are warned against. And the point, though, with that is that when they would warn, people would abandon them. People would leave them. They didn't warn so that you may follow your own method of going back and forward and checking and ascertaining, because indeed you're going to hear from the one who was warned against everything that will please you. And every single mubtadi', if you were to return back to him, he will not and Rather, he will have responses that will sound sweet, and that will be the perfect response. And he will have a response that will sound as though he was oppressed, And he will have a response that will sound as though the people did not give him a chance to express himself and speak. When in actuality, the sahib ilm, the one who has knowledge, is acquainted with the fact that his excuses are false excuses and that they are baseless. But the ignorant will not see that. The ignorant will not understand that. And thus he will be taken in by those excuses. And we constantly saw, ikhwan, historically, any individual that was warned against and continued to have individuals that followed him, they followed them because of the fact that they returned back to them in order to ascertain and to see exactly what is with them. And thus the Salaf of this ummah, they used to say, Iyakum wa ahlul ahwa, be aware of the people of desires, because they are either going to yaghmisukum, they're either going to plunge you into what they are in, or cause you to become confused about what you already know. Either they're going to plunge you in what they are in, or they're going to cause you to become confused about what you already know. And so what is it you seek to achieve? If it is that the one that warned was either an alim min ulama'i ahl sunnah, or from the students of ilm and the students of knowledge who are well known, and our people of knowledge, the scholars, have advised with them, and they have the ability to speak and detect that which our ulama detect. If it is that that is the case, and that this speech and this statement that comes from them, as is our dhann bihim, and our suspicion concerning them, that they are people of taqwa and uprightness, and people of veracity, and people who ascertain and check, and people who are acquainted with that which they should be acquainted with before they speak. If that is the case, then what is it that you seek to achieve by returning back to that individual to speak to him? Is it either that you believe that the statement of that alim or that talib ilm was a statement that was not placed and was not made based upon taqwa and based upon sidq and truthfulness and based upon evidence, or it is that your love for the individual that was spoken against causes you to desire that which will justify you remaining with him? And if that is the case, ikhwan, then the musibah is a'zam. The musibah is indeed greater. And so, ikhwan, the affair then, as our scholars mentioned, it is not an issue, it's not a case, it's not the case that when one of the ulama of Jarh wa Ta'deed speak, that we return back to that individual in order to hear his side of the story. They speak based upon taqwa, based upon truthfulness, based upon uprightness, based upon nasiha, based upon that which they observe and that which they see, which is in accordance with the usul of the religion and the deen. Many of those issues, even if one were to return back to that person, the general person possibly wouldn't recognize exactly where the problem is anyway. Allahu ta'ala a'lam.